He's got to at least play for 2 more national championships. Needs to win one of them and has to figure out the quarterback situation. Period.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by our friends Hunter Jones and Jon Smith. We talk about everything from bourbon to the dogs, and we answer questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out store.mygotapodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My God a Podcast. Finally, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. I can take a second to try and get the soundboard set up, but my computer, I think when I updated to the last OS, a bunch of my settings got all messed up. So I did go in there earlier today and it wasn't working. So I have to, all my MIDIs are not set up correctly to merge everything.
What sounds do you normally make? I'll just make the sounds.
Well, it's like the Munson, trying to put glasses on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
all those are from the soundboard then when I hear those on the podcast.
That or Robert's Beal, those are the things.
All right.
Trying to put glasses on it.
I'll just go. I'll do Touchdown Georgia.
Right. Yeah.
I can't do Eli Gold.
You sounded too exciting. Oh. You need to dull it down.
I was excited about it. Okay.
Touchdown.
I'm excited.
Georgia.
I can't even do Eli Gold because I'm still excited about that play.
It's funny for me, when we got on this call, just thinking about the fact, the first time we had you guys on here, for me, that was the first time I'd ever actually talked to either of you guys. It's crazy. I don't know how much things have changed. Obviously now we're also national champions, but
absolutely.
What a year on so many
by
fronts.
the way, also national champions.
Right, exactly. Yeah, national champions, all the things. All the things have changed.
Hey, do you remember that time we won the national championship?
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was pretty cool.
God.
Oh,
that was a good pop.
That is a good pop.
That was good.
What are we drinking?
I'm glad we left that in.
See, now I feel like I have to join now.
Well, this is an audio medium, I know, but have you guys seen these things?
It's Old Elk. The Old Elk.
Old Elk, and this is the Christmas bottle that I got. It has the little elk pourer. So now I'm going to pour my Old Elk.
Is it just regular Old Elk?
It's just regular Old Elk. Well, it's the blended, yeah.
That's cool.
That's so good.
It's pretty amazing. So I got the Old Elk, Hunter, for you. And then I know John tweets, you've got the fancy new Old Elk. I'm not saying it's what you're drinking, but...
Well, no, I'm drinking the Old Elk Sherry Cask, and it is phenomenal. I've been drinking it. I opened it this evening, been drinking it all night. It's a really good bottle.
I'm so jealous.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to swing by and steal a pour. And now Hunter's going to get the Old Elk. I'm the one that doesn't have the Old Elk Club. I've got the foolproof benchmark.
There you go.
I don't know that one.
I could buy 4 of these for the price of that one that John's drinking.
It's true. Benchmark is good though. Benchmark is not bad.
It's one of those. Benchmark is probably one of those ones that'll end up being like Henry McKenna. It'll be $50 in 4 years.
I'm getting down to the dire straits here with mine.
Now, is that the blended or is that the wheated?
This is straight bourbon whiskey. I don't know if you can see it on here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the...
Okay.
So they have a straight bourbon whiskey. They have a blended. They have the wheated. They have all the finishes. They have a bunch of them now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I've got the blended. So
I believe they have a rye.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah. That's whenever I've seen it says wheated, but then I think it's the rye, or there's a wheated just like whiskey or something.
For those of you just joining us, this is the Bourbon Podcast.
we've got a full 3 minutes on bourbon, which is not bad. We can just keep going, guys. I'll talk about bourbon all night.
I feel like we should mention, the recent creation, right? So we've got the founder.
Yeah.
I think we're all founding members, but we also have the founder of the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club. So I don't know. Why don't you just maybe take a minute to talk about it?
The man that finished the drill.
Yeah. Listen, so we had a phenomenal season of tailgating with the Georgia faithful, right? I attended a bunch of games and tailgates with Wise Dog and Bobby and Greg and a bunch of dog Twitter. And we just wanted to keep the good vibes going. So you three are obviously part of dog Twitter and bourbon Twitter. There's a big Venn diagram. And so my goal was to create a club where we could all, get to know other dog and bourbon lovers, get some meetups going, get a website going, get a Twitter account going, those kinds of things. And so we have the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club, and you can find it on all the socials at Dawg Bourbon. And it's great. We have over 600 members now. It's free to join. You just need to sign up for an email list at this point, and we'll figure out where it goes from there. So we have over 600 people. The reception has been incredible. And, you guys know from the text thread, we talk bourbon and dogs all the time. And so couldn't think of a better crossover. So we're going to get this thing going.
Yeah, I feel like that needs to be a tweet or an Instagram post. Needs to be the Venn diagram. I kind of want to see that graphically.
I got you a graphic coming. Venn diagram.
Thank you. Hunt the Jones. We need the bourbon Twitter, dog Twitter, Bulldog Bourbon Social Club Venn diagram, because it's a real thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I was super excited when you made that official and put that out there. And the logo is excellent. Also, great branding.
Yeah.
I mean, which you gotta have that. We're all fond of such things. So
listen, here's the thing. We're on My Gotta Podcast. If you're gonna do something with the My Gotta Podcast guys and Hunt the Jones, it's got to be top shelf. You can't be going out there with weak branding and weak, So we went strong. Big shout out to the guys on Dog Twitter and the Bourbon Tailgates that were kind of the catalyst for making it happen. They were tweeting about it, and I just took the ball and ran with it. So
yeah, it's awesome. It's taken off. It's pretty cool.
The logo reminds me of the tuxedo shop that everybody used to get their tuxedos from, Jim, for the fraternity and sorority events. It was like a bourbon. It was like a bulldog guy that was dressed up in a tuxedo.
Listen, it's sophisticated but not fancy. That's the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club. We've got good taste, but we're not high society. So
right.
I feel like everything you just described was Wise Dog if you didn't know Wise Dog, everything you just said was what he is.
Absolutely.
Oh, what was I saying? I was saying something and I just lost it. Oh, I was saying you were saying what the club has, but does it have inside sources? I think because that's a thing that happened since we last talked, was when Hunter went viral and was briefly enemy of some people for some reason. Hunter, what was that day like? How many over under notifications that you received from that tweet?
It was really just a night and day thing too, because it was obviously a Sunday morning. Woke up, was drinking the coffee. We were in the thread texting what would people say if this uniform just came out? And then of course y'all gassed me up and we're like, post it. we'll retweet it. So I was like, all right, what's the worst that could happen? So I put it out there. we came up with the right wording, and I went to church, and I turned my notifications off for church, and you know, about an hour and a half later when we left, I looked down at my phone, and Twitter had turned notifications off for me after that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had that happen. It turns them off. But it's quite the accomplishment.
For those who are just tuning in and missed it, Hunter tweeted about Clemson and Georgia wearing Color Rush uniforms, and attributed his knowledge of the Color Rush uniforms, the all red for Georgia and all purple for Clemson, I guess maybe, attributed it to inside sources. The inside sources were actually the text thread between the four guys that you're listening to, and it was a joke. But man, people took that seriously. That thing caught fire for sure.
Yeah, you were like, I mean, I'm not sure. Like Anthony Dasher may have blocked you over it. I'm not. We can't confirm that or not. But as he tends to do.
If you haven't been blocked by Anthony Dasher, are you even a Georgia fan?
Right.
I mean,
you breathe the air. You breathe the air. You've been blocked by Anthony Dasher. So we went from inside sources all the way to the national championship. We just rode that all the way to the national championship. I'm pretty sure we were getting notifications the week of the national championship game.
There was. I remember I did get a notification on that tweet. Like, it may have been after the national championship game. There was something happened. Somebody liked it or something way late, which I thought was pretty hilarious. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around this season and that this is all real and that it actually happened. I mean, it's a thing that you always hope for, and you're hopeful, as Kirby likes to say. I mean, I've convinced myself we were going to win it preseason. I don't know how many times, and then to actually do it, and then to have the ride. I mean, like you were saying, John, Dawg Twitter, the tailgates. It was incredible. I mean, it was a special season, on the field, obviously, but also off of it. I know, at least for me personally.
Yeah, totally. This was, I mean, if, there are a lot, you guys have been Georgia fans your whole lives, like I have, and been to numerous games, especially Jim and John, when you're on campus. And so, how seasons go, right? You have those, at least for me, I have had every season, I've had those few kind of memories to look back on where it's like, this tailgate was awesome. This game was awesome. This play was awesome. This, interaction with a group of people was awesome. This is the first time that I can look back and it's just moment after moment after moment, both on and off the field, where it really felt like, obviously culminating with the Dogs winning the national championship. I'm so glad that happened. Even if that didn't happen, which it did, Georgia is national champions, and we are the best team in college football. But even if that didn't happen, there were so many moments of just an amazing time throughout the year. Everywhere you turned, it was just a whole lot of fun. And I hope, we as Georgia fans, speaking to myself mostly, can actually take a moment and appreciate all of those moments that we had throughout the year of watching this team, because it's hard. It's hard when it's over and then all of a sudden you have National Signing Day and all of a sudden you have, the basketball team is a dumpster fire and whatever. You have all these things that happen. It's very hard to just look back and remember man, that was amazing. But what we just experienced was absolutely amazing. So I hope we can all take time to appreciate it.
What basketball team?
I don't know. I don't even want to talk.
I don't know.
I don't even want to talk about it.
I don't know.
I didn't even know there was a game last night. Like, and I'm like, have generally been. I love Georgia basketball, so it's sad. But anyways, that's all I want to say about that.
I was at a board meeting that I normally would much prefer watching a sporting event, but I was thankful that the board meeting gave me mercy for watching Georgia basketball. It's just sad, so we don't have to talk about it anymore. But
it is brutal. But yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing I think like John Powell, like kind of like we said even during the season, enjoy this, like, because we could sense it. I think to the point of like, you don't know how it's going to end, but the way you're seeing is pretty awesome, and you've never really seen anything like this before. And what I kind of get to is like getting hung up. I think a lot of people getting hung up on who's going to be the quarterback or whatever, and like, hopefully that didn't take you to the point of like missing, like, or not missing it, but whatever, like lowering the level of enjoyment or something where you're just anxious all the time. Which, like, I mean, I guess that's kind of how I am, but I did a better job, I think, of this year of kind of letting that go. I mean, like we've talked about, like, I wasn't nervous going into the national championship game, which is still weird to me because I'm nervous about every game. And this one, I was just kind of like, you know what? It is what it is. Like, we're here and let's go do it. And I wasn't nervous, which is really odd, but I think kind of speaks to the road we had traveled, right? The way the whole season was to get to that point. I just felt like we belonged there. There was nothing to be worried about.
Mm-hmm. It definitely did feel. It felt different the whole season through. I'm curious, like, aside from the national championship game, what were your John, Hunter? I think Jim and I have a pretty good idea of what Jim's going to say, but what were y'all's highlight? What were y'all's highlight moments?
Well,
like, you got that 30-second Instagram reel. What's on it?
Before I get into my highlights, I want to talk about, that whole, not being nervous going into the national championship game. I think a lot of that came from the fact that it was pretty obvious that Georgia was the best team all year, right? Other than the one game, the one afternoon in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is a house of horrors.
Yeah.
They were the best team all year. I mean, even in the Michigan game, it was like
the Michigan game. If that Michigan game had not have happened in between the SEC championship and the national championship game, I think all of our feelings would have been very different. But when we saw the national championship game, or we saw the SEC championship game happen, then we saw Georgia go out and absolutely dominate Michigan in a fashion where Kirby could have named his score on Michigan. Mm-hmm. You realize, like, okay, either that SEC championship game is an anomaly, or Alabama really is that good. And we saw Alabama against Auburn. We saw Alabama against LSU. We saw, like, against Texas A&M. Like, we saw them throughout the year. So I think, for me, that you're right, Hunter. It's we weren't nervous because we knew how good that team had been. And I think we were all confident that team was still there. It just had, the anomaly that, like, Nick Saban has never gone undefeated in a 15 season, in a 15-game season. And he's the greatest college football coach of all time. So I think that's just something, that, I think that Michigan game, though, like, thank God that Michigan game happened, because it definitely helped with my nerves personally.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
Hunter, what's your Instagram reel of the season? What's on it?
Well, obviously we start with all red, color rush, the whole hysteria around it. I mean, what a way to start it. And then the Charlotte trip and the tailgate in Charlotte and just that whole game. I mean, I can't get over how awesome of an atmosphere it was to watch a college football game at that stadium and in that city. And from there, I'm trying to think. Personally, I remember the games that I got to go to. I have season tickets, but as everybody knows, I live in coastal Mississippi. Like, it's every bit of a 7.5 hour drive for me. And as a teacher, I'm leaving after school at 4:00, which is 5:00 Georgia time. So the the drives up there. So the games that I got to go to, they are what vividly stick out to me. I mean, I do regret not going to that Arkansas game because of how it turned out, but at the same time, I don't regret. Part of me doesn't regret it because I was able to sell my tickets and the game was over within a quarter for a noon kickoff that I would have driven all the way up there for.
Pretty quick.
Right. Man, I didn't think about that drive. Like, with you saying that just now, like, I drove a little bit further to go to the national championship game from Charlotte to Indianapolis, and like that's a long ways. I can't like that. That is crazy to do that multiple times. It was to the point where I was like, if George ever plays in Indianapolis again, I'm flying. Like, I'm not doing that drive again.
No,
that was a long way. But yeah, man, Hunter, for you guys to do that every time you come to the game, that's multiple times a season. It's the dedication right there. It's pretty cool.
Hunter's driving all the way up there to see us beat the tail off of Missouri.
We're not going to get into the home schedule right now, but that drive between Mobile and Montgomery, it is the worst stretch of road, I would argue to you. I know that between, like, if you're going from Atlanta to Savannah or wherever, is pretty bad because I've done that one too.
I-16,
Mobile, yeah. Mobile to Montgomery is every bit as bad. Every bit as bad.
Worse than Gaffney? Oh. I hate Gaffney.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, 85 south. 85 south when it goes down to one lane. Or where you get, like, split into the merge lanes. So, not fun. Not fun. Jon Smith, what's your highlight? Yeah. What's your peak? Other than guess outside of the Natty.
I was about to say, like, I would have to say the Natty, but I think that's all of our peaks. For me, Clemson was awesome. Like, I think the game, the atmosphere, the tailgate that day, and then Georgia's defense gets on the field in the first play of the game. They sack DJU, and then from there they just did not relent the entire game. That felt really good. I would have to say personally, the Arkansas game. So I went with my dad and my my youngest brother at Dogs Forever. Shout out on Twitter. But so we went, game day was there. Like, we walked by and saw the whole, kind of spectacle. And that was when, there wasn't question with how good Georgia was, but there was, that kind of thing in the air of, this is a big game. It's a top 10 matchup at the time. And, is how for real is Georgia, that kind of, moment. And watching that first series with Arkansas where they had 2 false starts, and watching this, like, it's a noon kickoff. And I've been to many, many noon kickoffs in Sanford Stadium. 2013 LSU was probably the loudest I've ever heard Sanford Stadium. That Arkansas game was right up there. I mean, it was nuts, especially that first drive for Arkansas. So that moment where Georgia just absolutely dominated, and particularly kind of like seeing the student section in there at 11 o'clock or 10:45, like, just packed. Yeah. It was awesome. So that would be it for me. Would be Arkansas.
Yeah. John, Pal, and I like to agree on the podcast a lot. But tonight I'm going to agree with you because that's it for me too. Like, and I'll just add 2 things on top of that. One is that game was the game that I met 51-7 GATA for the first time, And then actually, I'll have three things. That's one. The second is that's the first time I ever rocked my baseball pullover. Shout out Hunter for the recommendation. And then the third thing was that was the only games like my whole family came. So Kim and the girls came. And that game, like Ella wanted to borrow my noise canceling headphones because it was so loud. So again, to restate how loud the stadium was, it was nuts. And I had a huge gap, like going to games in person. Like I started off the season, boom, 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 going to every game. I didn't go. That was the last game I went to, actually. Arkansas was the last game I went to until the Natty. So I think that's probably a big part of the why too. So
I didn't realize that.
Well, you
went to the first four games, and then
you talking about that kind of reminded me. It's weird how like over the course of a season, when you look back on it, like I actually haven't took the time to sit down and think and look back on it yet until now. But just how what's irony maybe is a good word for it. I'm an English teacher. I should know this stuff, but like just different moments.
Come on, Hunter.
The UAB game, right? I think back on that one. That's what's coming to my mind now. And it just kind of is crazy how it came full circle. That was the home opener. That was after Charlotte. And Meg the Jones was not about driving back to Georgia again for UAB. And so I got to actually take my best friend from down here, who is not even from here. He moved here a couple years ago from Iowa, but he grew up a Michigan fan. And he is the biggest diehard Michigan fan that you'll ever meet, which I never understood. But he came to the game with me, and we were at the Huggins tent. Shout out to Hug Dog. And this was prior to the game. My friend, his name is Josiah. He is the most stubborn when it comes to his fandom. I was like, we're going to a Georgia game. We're not going to a Michigan game. We're not going to any of Michigan's rivals' games. Why are you going to wear that Michigan polo shirt? He said, because it's my game day. I wear it every Saturday that Michigan's playing a game. And they were playing some nobody that day or whatever. So he's walking around campus with a navy blue with a big yellow M Michigan polo on. And like I said, we were at the Huggins tent. And it just so happens that we're sitting there tailgating, talking. And this guy comes up to the tent and is talking to people, didn't think any of it. And he comes right up to Josiah and he shakes his hand. He goes, hey, man. He's like, I got a whole bookstore right there of something that you could be wearing right now. You need to go change. And we all just kind of looked at each other as he walked off. And we're like, who is that? And Huggins was like, oh, that's Josh Brooks, the athletic director. Just casually comes up and chastises Josiah for wearing a Michigan shirt to the UAB home opener. And then fast forward, who do we play in the playoff? First game. Our friendship survived it, by the way. Just a disclaimer. Michigan.
I think they call it foreshadowing. It was foreshadowing, not ironic.
There we go.
There you go. John's holding class right now.
Amazing.
What about you, JP? Answer your own question. What was yours outside the Natty?
I mean, I think that for me, all the games that I went to or experiences that I went to. So I took my daughters to the Missouri game, which was awesome. The whole experience. It was Caroline's first ever like in-person game that she probably is going to remember. So it was a daddy-daughter day in Athens, which was awesome. That was a highlight for me personally, just as a dad and as a fan, just experiencing that. Showing the girls, where my formative years were spent, that kind of thing. And then, took Carter, had three generations of, our family at the Georgia Tech game. Carter, my brother-in-law and his grandfather, they were all there at the Georgia Tech game, which, was not Carter's first time that he's been to Tech, but it was the first time he probably is going to remember.
It was the first time you ever took him to a tailgate ever in his life, John. Ever. That's what he told me.
The first time I've ever tailgated with him. Yeah. False. And then the SEC championship would definitely be another one for me as well, because that was one that Lindsay, my brother-in-law, and his wife, it was like we did like a little staycation, like went and stayed in a hotel, and we all just kind of hung out and had a good time. The game sucked, but we had a blast.
I was gonna say, it's impressive for you to be able to pull the positive memories out of that weekend.
No, dude, that was some good times with some folks that you normally get to kick back with without kids. You know what I mean? And then everything about that day was always just with the caveat of, we don't need to win this game, whatever.
I know. I mean, I'm still so I am now beyond like my half joking, maybe a little more than half serious, like conspiracy theory that we sandbagged that game. But I do think it's something I do think there's something in the back of your mind. If you think about anything in life, you don't really have to do it. It's different than if you have to do it. And
for sure,
they knew they didn't have to win. I mean, I think that's I don't know. That's the way to me, that's the biggest factor of that game. And Alabama's really good, and maybe they needed the wake up call. I mean, maybe they don't wax Michigan like that if we don't lose to Alabama. Who knows? We wouldn't have played Michigan. We would have played Cincinnati, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, you can't if you've got a tournament or whatever coming up. Like maybe you don't need to go to practice. Maybe you don't need to go to practice on Monday because you're going to have another one later that week. It's not super vital. So the day of the game, you got to go. So you got to show up. So I mean, it's like there's so many things in life that you can look at like that. Like you didn't have to do this because there's always going to be a tomorrow. Well, what happens when there's no tomorrow?
I do wonder would that game have gone differently if it was a you lose and you go home kind of deal. I mean, I guess we saw what happened when we were in that scenario at the end of the year, but who knows? I guess the one other thing I wanted to hit on, because I know John tweets, you get a lot of people coming at you from fan bases and such. Like,
do they come at him or does he go at them?
Well, either way, it's give and take.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line.
What has been so beautiful is how much like Alabama fans have just lost their mind. Like it's pretty.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty fun to watch. Like I've always been like perplexed by. They've been obsessed with Georgia for years, which was I always found very odd. It's like we can't beat you guys. Why do you always come after us on Twitter and on the socials and just in general? Like always talking about Georgia. Like why do you even care about us at all? I mean, my theory now is that maybe it was because of fear. I don't know, but at any rate, I mean, it's been pretty fun to watch them just kind of lose it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I try to be careful and not generalize an entire group of people. One thing. So Twitter for me is just Twitter. I tweet a lot about. I enjoy the X's and O's of football. I enjoy statistics. I enjoy the ins and outs. I tweet a lot about that stuff. But Twitter for me is entertainment. And so there are times when, I'll throw out a meme or rib a little bit. And Alabama fans have 100% been the fan base that takes themselves the most seriously. Like when they lost that game, it was, I do agree with your point, Jim. I think it's insecurity. I think there is this, we have this dynasty, which they do. We have the greatest coach of all time, which they do. But I think they also know that, Nick Saban, like, let's be real, he's 70 years old and he's not going to do this forever. Even if, he does it another, 10 years or whatever. When I think Alabama fans can deal with Jimbo Fisher beating Nick Saban, they can deal with Dabo Swinney beating Nick Saban. they can't deal with Kirby Smart beating Nick Saban because Kirby Smart was with Nick Saban for 8 years. Kirby Smart was his right hand person. Kirby Smart was in a lot of ways Nick Saban's protege, right? Like, I mean, he was the guy that he was with Nick Saban at LSU.
For real.
He was with Nick Saban at LSU. He was with Nick Saban at the Dolphins. He came with Nick Saban to Alabama. Nick Saban promoted him to defensive coordinator. Nick Saban is arguably the greatest defensive mind in college football. And he taught Kirby Smart all of his ways. And so when Kirby Smart ascended to that mountain and beat him, I think that's what Alabama fans have feared over the last few years, and why even when they've beat Georgia, they have, there has been just a crescendo that was a little bit higher every time they beat Georgia than when they beat anyone else. And now that they've lost to Georgia, it's the same way. Their response is a little less measured than when they lost to everyone else. And I think it's because of Kirby Smart's history with Nick Saban. And I also think that they know, like, Kirby Smart is a damn good football coach. Like, he has built a program to last. They know this isn't, they know what's coming from Kirby Smart, and they know that, the guy's 46 years old, and he has a lot of years to continue building that program and continue winning. And so when I tweet memes, Alabama fans tend to absolutely lose their mind. And there's one guy today who this lady tweeted this, she was trying to make a point, I think, about the pandemic. She tweeted, "What's the biggest lie we've been told in the last 2 years?" I quote tweeted that and said, "Kirby Smart will never beat Nick Saban." And man, and Alabama fans, sure as anything, came right out. Kirby beat his second worst team of all time and missing their blah 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 blah. And it was a joke. It was just like, I was like, we're just having fun. And but they, I think that fear is definitely there. And honestly, as somebody who enjoys the entertainment factor of Twitter very much, it's a lot of fun to watch because it's just fun. Because you can just reply with like a picture of Stetson Bennett holding the Natty Trophy, or a GIF of Kirby Smart like kissing the Natty Trophy, and you don't even have to add any words. You just reply with a picture of Georgia holding the Natty, and they just keep going. And it's just, I'll never understand that insecurity when you've won as much as they have.
Yeah.
I hope that Georgia fans, I hope that we keep we keep some measure about ourselves if we continue to win as much as they have.
Yeah, that's a good call out. So that just made me think back to. So I'm gonna go back. I want to try to get this right, because Hunter, you had like a script almost. And I feel like, this is like the whole, like, no one would believe it if you wrote it, whatever kind of thing. I think your script, correct me if I'm wrong, was like Stetson Bennett comes off the bench to vanquish Bama in the SEC title or something like that. I think that was it. Am I getting that right? I think that was kind of your plan.
That was like
when things were going back and forth.
UAB weekend when he came in and played that game. I remember I was in the stands with Josiah, and I was like, this dude is like the third string quarterback. Why is he playing right now? And then I shot a text message to the thread, and I was like, I'm calling it right now. Stetson Bennett I didn't think he was going to be the starter by any means, but I was like, we're going to make it to the Natty, and he's going to come off the bench, just because so many people are making such a stink about him playing this game against UAB. And sure enough, he didn't come off the bench and beat them, but he played the whole season and beat them.
Yeah, yeah. It's still incredible. I mean, how long do we have to wait for the Stetson movie? Like, in the olden times, it would have taken a long time, but now with like Disney Plus and stuff, I feel like it may not be that far out.
Think about when that Clemson movie, I can't remember what it was.
We need the time. How much time passed between that happening and the movie? This is where I need the soundboard, because we need to put glasses on it. So there's the there's the usage. Fail. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
So safety came out in 2020, which was the story about the guy that was from Clemson, which I feel like that happened like 10 years plus ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in my mind it's recent, but I'm old. I'm 42, so everything it feels it's not in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago. Whatever.
Well, I hope it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah. I don't care what anybody says about defense. The defense was an historic defense, generational defense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett, literally in the spring of last year, was talking to the coaches about, should I go somewhere else, because he wasn't getting reps. Like he was so far down the depth chart that he was like not getting any meaningful reps in spring, right? I mean, the spring game, it was JT Daniels starting on one team and Carson Beck starting on the other. Like he was the guy was down there, and to go from that, not only former walk on that ended up getting a scholarship to come back, but he went from in the spring where he was on the depth chart to leading the offense, leading the team. And people can say a number of things about him, but the guy, he made some bad decisions and some bad throws in the SEC championship game. But he also, Alabama scored 24 points in the second quarter. Georgia was shell shocked, and Georgia's down, whatever it was, 17-10 or whatever. And Stetson took him right down the field and scored. He comes out, he throws an interception, right? And then Alabama goes and scores, and kind of the game is, getting wonky at that point, but then he takes him down the field and scores again. Like the guy was, he was resilient throughout the entire season. And I hope he gets his movie, because God, I would want a movie. I mean, are you serious?
What?
Like I'd be like, I want a movie. I mean,
I feel like that has to happen.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no better. I'm hard pressed to think of a better story than his. It's incredible, and like I feel like it's easy to forget, or maybe it shouldn't be easy to forget. I mean, the guy's been really good at Georgia. Like for all the crap that people throw at him, like I mean, take away. I mean, so the game at Alabama, I wouldn't put that on him either. I'm talking like in the COVID year. And then he was absolutely balling out against Florida, and we were waxing Florida until he got hurt. And like the play that Rosemary Jackson broke his ankle, and Stetson got hurt, and that totally changed the game. And then we didn't see it again.
And Georgia was missing Jordan Davis, Richard LeCount.
Yeah,
like there were some guys on defense that would have made a difference against that Florida team.
Yeah.
If Stetson were able to stay healthy, but again, I mean, Stetson is, I don't know his starting record, but he's lost 3 games in 2 years, and won a national championship, won a college football playoff game. Even in the game that the SEC championship that we lost, he threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or whatever. So
and a couple.
Yeah. Well, yes. Bryce Young threw a couple interceptions in the Natty. So,
yes, it turns out if you throw interceptions in big games, it's not good.
It's not good.
Right?
It's not good.
I mean, it's funny too, because like everyone always makes jokes about Buck Bellew, one pass because he had one completion in the national championship game, and so people tend to say the similar kind of things about Buck. Although Buck was like a 2-sport athlete, I mean, he played baseball, and it was kind of the thing of the era. But you can't say these things about Stetson. I mean, MVP of the national championship game in a semifinal. So, anyways, we've got a decent amount of listener questions. You guys want to kind of like meander through those, and if we go off the rails, it's fine.
There's at least a handful that I can see are going to go off the rails.
Yeah, that's fine. So this one, we solicited these a while ago because we all went off the rails and we've had to reschedule this a couple of times. So maybe we could double this one up a little bit. So DGD podcast, which go check them out. Robert Reynolds and Juan Daniels on that podcast. Chime in and grade the BMAC hire A to F. I mean, I gave it an A personally, but
yeah,
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it's an A. Yeah, for me. I think, yeah, I'll let everybody else grade and then we can add some commentary, but it's an A for me.
I agree. A, especially on the recruiting front and the impacts that it has. I mean, the fact that he took a lateral move from where he was to it's a solid hire, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby adds yet another former head coach. To his staff. So I love it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think from a recruiting standpoint, but I also just think from we saw how some of the players responded to Brian McClellan, some of the recruits that he was recruiting to Miami, and maybe even some guys he was recruiting to Oregon, how they responded to that hire on Twitter, and that just tells you all you need to know. Like there were guys who were responding very positively to this hire, and man, BMAC, for folks who don't know, like Brian McClendon just has swagger. Like he just has like, I mean, this is a guy who was a recruiter for, guys like Nick Chubb and Todd Gurley and Sony Michel and Lorenzo Carter and like a bunch of like the guy just has swagger, and that is something that separate from his football intellect, I think he's a really good coach. I think he'll be a really great coach for the wide receiver group, but he also just has like that it factor that you want with recruiting. So. And he also recruited Jason Stanley as a wide receiver and then they turned him into a cornerback that ended up playing in the NFL. So,
right. For sure. I even think back to his playing days. I mean, I love him because he caught the game-winning touchdown against Georgia Tech in 2005. So that always that is entrenched in my mind. That was the year that I bought the Georgia Tech mini season tickets to go to that game. But so what I was saying, we could maybe double that up a little bit on Fran Brown, who's the new, I believe, cornerbacks coach at secondary but like focus on corners, right? So we got Muschamp's going to be the safeties coach, and then Fran. So I don't know much about Fran Brown other than I have heard good things, and people seem to be pretty high on him. I don't know if any of you guys know anything about him. I know he came from Rutgers, and he's highly thought of. That's all I've heard. Do you guys have anything more in depth than that? Because that's all I got.
That's all I was going to say. I mean, college football is you could probably get the quote that I'm alluding to, Jim, is all about the players. I mean, it's all about recruiting. You get the best players, I don't want to overgeneralize it and say it doesn't matter like how well your coaches coach the game, because it does, obviously, but like if you can get coaches that will consistently recruit all the best players, you're going to win. I mean, that's just how it is in college football.
Yeah. I mean, so I think there's two things that we all know with Kirby Smart is one, he has an eye for talent, both in coaching and in and in players, right? So, especially in this, Kirby Smart, he comes from he was a defensive back. You got Will Muschamp in that room now as co-defensive coordinator. They're not going to hire a guy that doesn't know absolutely what he's doing in that position room, right? I mean, they're definitely going to hire a guy that knows what he's doing. And so I think Fran Brown is that. I mean, he spent a lot of time at Temple, which is interesting, but he also spent time he spent time at Baylor with Matt Rule, and then he's been at Rutgers for the last couple of years. If you guys haven't, if folks listening, if you haven't seen what's been going on with Rutgers with Greg Schiano, I mean, Rutgers has been a really, amazing story from just kind of a resurgent standpoint, a program that was just really kind of in the tank. And then Greg Schiano comes back and they're not, they haven't been blowing the doors off, but they, ended up, being competitive in a lot of games that they shouldn't have necessarily been competitive in. They have a lot of players that they've recruited, and their trajectory is definitely on the way up. And so I think Fran Brown has a lot to do with that. I think, he, being part of that coaching staff that put together, some really good recruiting classes for Rutgers, and has just actually done a good job of coaching. So I think, I don't know how I would grade it because I don't know much about him as a coach. But in Kirby, we trust, right? I mean, I think this is this is the kind of thing that he does, and I also think this is also the it's not unfamiliar of some of the things that happened early in his tenure at Alabama with coaches, right? I mean, Nick Saban promoted him to defensive coordinator and hired some coaches under him that folks hadn't heard a lot about, and all of a sudden they become that kind of vaunted coaching tree that has come from Nick Saban. So
for sure, nice. All right, so we give a good grade to Fran Brown. Got more to learn,
and he has a great name too, like Fran Brown.
I mean, obviously big friend of Fran. Does he know Fran Tarkenton? Like, we got to introduce.
Absolutely. There you go. There you go.
I don't know. I may have just spilled the beans on part of my as I segue. I haven't totally decided yet, but let's go to the next one. So from Zach, SC Dog 864, big listener, frequent question asker. Said didn't say it last time, but thankful for your podcast. Helped me through many nights at work, and just great to listen to during the season and now. So obviously, thank you, Zach. Much appreciated. He says, but my question is Mount Rushmores. So Mount Rushmores of Georgia players, and he's got some eras. So we could probably do an entire podcast on this. But so he's got like pre-2000s, then 2000 to 2010, and then 2010 to 2021. We might have to like round robin this to get to it, but like, because pre-2000s is a really wide range. So obviously Herschel's on the pre-2000 Mount Rushmore. And then I said Fran Tarkenton. I don't know. Fran, I'm too young to really know. And you definitely think of him more as he's more well known for his NFL career, I guess I would say, than college. So I would for me it's Zaire in that area as far as quarterbacks. But
yeah, I mean pre 2000s though, right? So it's got to be Champ Bailey.
Yeah.
Champ Bailey, Hines Ward maybe needs to be on there. Sure. These are guys, it's interesting because when you're talking about Mount Rushmore, I think, hindsight is always 2020. I don't know that we realize what Hines Ward really was when he was at Georgia. But anybody that can do, kind of what he did on some teams that how do I say this politely, that should have been better than they were.
Right.
So I think you got those guys like pre-2000s that fit in there. Garrison Hurst maybe in there, but if you're going with Mount Rushmore, and what are there 4 on Mount Rushmore?
There are 4.
I think Herschel Walker. I think Eric Zaire. I would put Champ Bailey on there, and then you got one more that you got to figure out.
JP is counting on his fingers. He was told there would be no math. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there 5? Aren't there 5 on Mount Rushmore?
No.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay, 4.
Yeah. All right.
This is not where I expected the question to turn to.
Off the rails. You know who I would put on there pre-2000s? Dead serious. Mount Rushmore, Kevin Butler.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one.
Dead serious.
Kevin Butler, Herschel Walker. You got Heinz Ward. I got to go Eric Zaire. I got to put Eric Zaire on there. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Because we can spend
Perfect.
all day. All right. How about the 2000s? So 2000 to 2010. All right. Let me start with this. Because you've always got there's going to be a quarterback on there, right?
Okay.
I think. I guess it doesn't have to be. But if you think think about this era, right? So you got Green, you got Shockley, you got Stafford. So you got.
It's got to be
and
Green.
what? Well,
he's the only one. He's the only one that won
he
it.
accomplished the most.
He's the only one that won an SEC
Yeah.
championship.
Yeah, it's got to be David Green. It's got to be David Green if you're going quarterbacks in the 2000s to 2010.
It's got to be Green. Yeah. It's got to be Pollock.
Yep.
I
would say you'd probably throw in there maybe Jarvis.
Jones?
Jarvis
later.
Jones.
He's too late. He's 2000. He's post 2010.
Is he?
12 was his big year.
Okay.
I think he was 11 and 12, but he was a pre-transfer portal. Remind you.
He was close. So Green, Pollock.
Yeah, Pollock is the number one from that era. You could go AJ Green. Although we're just throwing all. Well, yeah.
Was it Johnson? Charles Johnson?
He was there.
No,
although I'd go Thomas Davis over him.
Thomas Davis, yeah.
I'd go no Sean Marino over both of them.
No Sean.
That's a good one.
I mean, if you're having, I don't know if we're on the last spot on Mount Rushmore. I think Thomas Davis deserves a spot up there. If we're not, if all spots are not full, but David Green, no Sean Marino,
Pollock.
Thomas Davis, David Pollock
feels
pretty good.
That's pretty solid.
AJ.
Yeah, AJ Green is right in there. AJ Green's right in there. That some of the things are weird, like around like years. And here's the weird thing about Noshawn is he only played for 2 years.
I know
because he was redshirted for some reason.
Yep.
But the impact. Sorry, bad thing. Okay, Hunter. Now we're getting, into your age range a little bit. Sorry, Hunter. Okay, so how about 2010 to current?
It's got to be Fromm and Chubb, right?
See, that's tough.
Hunter, give us your 4.
Well, are we differentiating between the Natty team and like prior to?
They can all be from the Natty team as far as
they can all.
I was about to say.
It's
anything post 2010 or later.
Post 2010.
Who's your top 4? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is hard because these have been the best. These have been the best Georgia teams of the whole kind of era that we've listed.
Stetson Davis.
I mean, my mind immediately goes to Aaron Murray is like household name, like kind of like when I think back prior to like Kirby and the good players, Aaron Murray is one of those. But then this whole era is defined by Kirby's era, like there was the team in 2017 that kind of like they broke open the door and set up this what Georgia has become, right? So Jake Fromm, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, players like that. And then you have the Natty team, obviously. I mean, Stetson Bennett has to be on there, right? He won the Natty.
Well, so
yeah.
So 4 or 5 Mount Rushmores is what you're saying, Hunter. Like just build more mountains.
Look, we can have a Mount Rushmore and a Stone Mountain. What if we
just carve the faces smaller? Add more people to it.
Amazing.
I mean, can you leave? I think Hunter, you just asked the best question of the whole thing is. Doesn't Stetson Bennett have to be on the Mount Rushmore?
He does.
Does he have to be on it?
He has to.
Yes.
Right?
I think
for
he has
sure.
to be. And it's not to say I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's a better quarterback than Aaron Murray, but
And I would go so far as to say is that his bust should probably have a mailman hat on.
Look, I'm going to go so far as to say and ruffle some feathers. If you're talking about a forever Georgia football Mount Rushmore, he has to be on it.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, he ended the drought. The one this or like Kirby era player that I would, not that there's just one, but Todd Gurley, I would put on there.
For me,
I'm putting Chubb ahead of Gurley. Sorry.
I got to tell y'all.
Interesting.
On my Mac, my messages come through where I can see them. Megan's in the other room, and she has no idea what we're talking about, but I guess she can hear me talking. And she just sent me a message that said, David Pollock better be on the mountain, every mountain.
Yes,
every mountain.
Magda Jones comes through.
I concur.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the 2010s to now. I think it's for me personally, it's Todd Gurley. It's you know what? I'm going to put Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb on the mountain. I'm just going to put two running backs up there because I think I mean that's RBU. Defined. Yeah, RBU. That defined. Yeah, and then I'm gonna put. I am gonna put Stetson Bennett on that mountain. I have to think about that one. And then, you know what? Like, this is a question for the group. Are you putting Roquan Smith or Nakobe Dean on the mountain?
Roquan.
So here's the funny thing about this. And this is like, I think gets to like your natural tendencies of bias is like, I agree with putting two tailbacks on there because we're tailback U or we're RBU. But what is Kirby Smart known for? And what have these teams been so great at? Defense. And we're like, defense, so what one defensive player do you want to put on?
I said Jordan Davis.
No. I'm putting two defensive players on there. I'm putting Jordan Davis on there because of what he meant to like the program. And then if you have 4 spots, and I don't know that we've confirmed if there are 4 or 5 yet, but I don't know much about Mount Rushmore. But if you have 4 spots, and it comes down to one more, are you going with Nakobe Dean or Roquan Smith? I will tell you guys, for me, I'm going with Nakobe Dean. I'm doing it. If you watch what Nakobe did this season, and even watch what he did in the Peach Bowl against Cincinnati, where he's yelling at guys to get in position. Everybody, like, you just watch the way he led that defense. And outside of that, you look at his pick six against Florida. You look at some of those plays he made against Michigan. You look at kind of what he was doing against Alabama and the Natty. Like, I'm going with Nakobe Dean.
3 years ago, I would have thought that was blasphemous, but I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say you talked me into it.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And Roquan, I mean, he's an all-timer. I still say it, and I say this a lot, and I don't mean to say that he should have come back to school because that's irrelevant. If he had come back, we win the Natty in 2018. But whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we went as far off the rails as I thought we would with that one, which means that was a great question, Zach. Thank you, and hopefully we sufficiently answered it. All right, John Michael D. All right, first off, shout out to Hunt the Jones for the glorious NCAA BS BCS National Championship Bowl Game Champions designed for the Cheeseheads. So if you're not in the know, I was going to grab it. It's like I would have to move. I have one. I have two, actually. Hunter designed a sticker with that on it. That's a Corrine Brown quote that is frequently used on the Second String podcast, and Hunter designed the sticker for them. So shout out Hunter, and I agree. I'm shouting you out Hunter because I've got two of them, and they were actually mailed to me directly from Corrine Brown, apparently, according to the return address, which I thought was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So the question is between Jimbo and Kelly, who is now Jimbo Fisher and Brian Kelly, who is now more likely to continue the pattern of behavior that would be fitting of the heir of the clown king throne. So who's more clown king, Jimbo Fisher
Brian
or
Kelly.
Brian Kelly?
Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly. Final answer.
The fastest answered question in the history of my God podcast.
Guys, I'm gonna say this right now to everyone listening. LSU is gonna regret hiring Brian Kelly over Dave Aranda.
I agree.
LSU should have gone to Baylor and backed up the Brinks truck and brought Dave Aranda back to LSU. They're going to regret. Their athletic director is known for trying to make splashy hires. He did this with Brian Kelly. I think they're going to regret it.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully for us, he did that because we're getting great memes created already, and we need a replacement for Dan Mullen. So I salute you. I salute you.
Everyone, go on Twitter and search for Miles Brennan dance. It was way worse. Miles Brennan, his NIL, he did an NIL commercial where he did this ridiculous dance, and it was worse than Brian Kelly. He wasn't dancing on anyone, but the dance itself was worse than Brian Kelly. So,
Brian Kelly cannot execute the circling camera like Kirby can. Kirby obviously owns that weight.
All Kirby has to do is just kind of look goofily into the camera.
Brian Kelly is going to end up being, I think I agree with John. It's going to be a terrible hire. I almost feel bad for the guy. The lucrative amount of money he's getting paid makes me not feel bad for the guy. But having grown up here in this area that I grew up in, around LSU fans my whole life, the moment he stops, or if he never starts, winning, they are going to eat him alive. It is going to be awesome to watch, terrible for him, make you feel bad for him, that type of bad.
I guarantee.
Exactly. That's what I was going to. With you being in the region, what was the, I know what it was here, but in the region, what was the reaction to the weird, fake accent in the introductory? When he went to, was it a basketball game or whatever, and he's talking and he suddenly had this half Cajun accent or whatever? Are people making fun of him there, or?
So far, from what I have been able to see, at least with some of my immediate family that like LSU and the people that I know that like LSU, they are on a wait and see. We don't like him, but if he wins, we'll like him. That's where it is right now. Too early to tell. He's corny, whatever. We don't like him, but if he wins, winning cures all for LSU fans. It really is just that simple. Until you stop winning, and then they fire you, even if you just won, like Coach O, who was there. I mean, if you could draw a caricature of the perfect LSU coach, it was Coach O, and he had the perfect season. Yeah. And look how quickly they turned on him. He was their guy, and then he wasn't because he didn't win.
He turned on himself.
In fairness, Coach O did lose to Troy in his first full season as head coach at LSU, so he didn't quite come out of the gate in the right frame of mind, and I think that's also, and honestly, I mean, he in my opinion, he didn't deserve the credit. He had Dave Aranda and he had Joe Brady and he had a really good staff, and then he Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You just go name
Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's kind of
Joe Burrow.
Is that the soundboard? Is that the soundboard?
Yeah, it's back. I don't even know where it came from. Yeah. John hooked up his own soundboard.
John, I think what you're saying is kind of the point that I'm trying to make. You articulated it better than me. They are so quick to turn. They knew that it wasn't him, but because he was the head coach and he was winning and he had the Cajun accent and he was a regular, for all intensive purposes, a regular Cajun LSU fan, they loved him. He was the cult hero until he wasn't. Just like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He is the perfect coach there. All right. All right. Next up, we got a friend of the show. We got fellow founding member of the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club, Jason Huggins at HugDog18.
Hug dog.
You know I love the podcast, and I'm thrilled you will have these 2 DGDs. So how about that? How about that for an opening pre question? All right, and so this one we're gonna turn this over to the specialist here, Hunter Jones. Fellas, uniform Twitter is a thing. What are the things you look for in uniforms that allow you to judge them as thumbs up or thumbs down? So we're going to give you the floor first, Hunter.
Brand. I mean, you can have all the crazy stripes, crazy combinations, whatever. That doesn't make it look good. What makes it look good is if it is consistent with your brand. Whatever that brand is that's established, your uniform needs to be consistent with the brand. And for people who, might not have the uniform lingo like I do or like some of us do, when I talk about brand, I'm talking about the colors. Okay, so everybody knows Oregon for their uniforms, right? But more than half of their uniforms aren't school colors. Like, not even close. So, like, to me, Oregon, as cool of uniform designs as they come out with, I don't think that their uniforms are good unless they incorporate the colors of their school and their brand. And another thing that immediately pops into my mind is like number font. Like, everybody wants block font. Like, I know we're all about block font. But like, it would be better, and this is just my opinion, take it for, grain of salt, whatever. You don't have to just throw a block font on there and say it's good because it's a block font, because that's what we had in, the 80s or whatever. Like, Michigan did a really good job with it. North Carolina did a really good job with it. They both have a block font, but it's a branded block font. And it's branded specifically to their school. And, some people call it Nike speak. Like, they go in and they really do. Like, I wish it was my job. Like, I can't hate on them because I would do it in a heartbeat if they offered it to me. And they have people from Nike or whatever school that does it, if they do it right, that go in and they live in town and they stay on campus and they get paid to research and find various design elements of the campus or of this history or this historical logo and incorporate them into the brand. And sometimes it comes out really good and sometimes it comes out really bad. But I will say this for Nike, 9 out of 10 times it comes out really good. It really does. Where Nike goes wonky is when they start letting coaches or whoever influence having 100 different combinations that half of them don't end up matching, or let's have this color jersey, so we'll throw it together on Nike Team Builder and order it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Man, you kind of crushed my heart on the don't just chase nostalgia, but that's okay because I think that's valid. Because I know, for me, that's generally. I mean, look, not just in uniforms, right? A lot of times you're looking for nostalgia, and that's why it is quote unquote cool, right? Because it's what you remember. So
I'm about to ruffle so many feathers with this. You ready for this?
Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go.
The nostalgia that you're talking about, that nostalgia for you, is how you grew up remembering Georgia football, and especially winning Georgia football. 20 years from now, the kids growing up that watch this natty run, you know what their nostalgia is going to be? Bulldog Bold.
Bulldog Bold. Yes.
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it.
I was just thinking that.
And when we move to block this year, because the block is coming, I think it's pretty well known that we can, inside sources, outside sources, whoever you want, it's coming. Block is coming. Bulldog Bold will be no more on a football jersey. But like I said, 20 years from now, the kids who grew up with this team and following the Natty run and the years leading up to it, they're a nostalgia that they will chase and want and clamor for as adults. They will want Bulldog Bold if it's nostalgia based.
Yeah, well, that's where I always laugh at like I call them the uniform police. Like people that get mad about like, you know, it's got to be silver britches and it's got to be this and it's got to be that, and it's like it's because it's always been that way. And it's like, well, like look at that. Not really. Like, you know, we used to wear silver helmets and our mascot was a goat. So like, not always. You got to be careful with that word. But yeah,
Silver?
no, for sure. Yeah, we used to wear silver helmets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we wore black helmets one time.
I wouldn't mind the silver helmet. I wouldn't mind the silver helmet throwback.
Hunter has a good mock-up. You did like a if you were given the keys to make a pro combat, didn't you do one like that? That it was kind of like more of a throwback.
Yeah, so basically sometimes when I get the wild hair to do some uniform designs and, you know, ruffle some feathers on Twitter, my avenue is not like John's. Mine, I don't post any memes or go after opposing fan bases. I just post a uniform that has some combination of not block font and silver breeches, and people lose their minds. So what I did was...
You're then called UGA Taliban Twitter when you do that.
Yeah, Taliban Twitter.
Taliban Twitter. I forgot about that.
It was on the dog man.
You're a terrorist.
Sorry, off the rails.
But so yeah, I did a throwback mock-up, and it's really just based on the old silver throwback helmet and that really simple red jersey with white numbers, white pants, and it got a little traction. But I mean, it all goes back to that branding thing. Like, nostalgia is good. Like, go for it. Incorporate a throwback uniform, but you don't have to have your full uniform look like it came ordered out of the catalog from, 1970, because the nostalgic uniforms that you call traditional uniforms are just catalog uniforms that they hoped would get there before the first game and threw some numbers on. You know what I mean?
My question is I wonder how Hug Dog is feeling with the answer. Is this the answer he expected?
I mean, John, that's how it is. Like, here's another.
No, it's true. It's true. Every uniform, traditional uniform, if you look across a number of spectrums that people really latch onto, were stock uniforms.
It's like a template.
Like some of the uniforms that Georgia wore in the 90s that a lot of people have nostalgia for were the same uniforms, like the same lettering, different color scheme, obviously, but the same lettering, the same holes like in the uniform so it could breathe, that I wore playing football in high school in Northwest Georgia. Like, it was literally the same manufacturer, the same So Hunter has a great point.
I'm pretty sure there's no difference other than color between the drop shadow uniform that Georgia wore with the stripes on the collar. And I'm probably, somebody's going to go off on me on Twitter for this if I'm wrong. But like, just my memory, I haven't looked it up. Like, the block drop font jerseys that Clemson wore, the only difference is they changed the black to purple and the red to orange. Like,
yeah.
And it's just one of those things, and I'm not totally against it. Like, back then, everything had to be ordered out of the catalog. Like I said, they hoped they could get it in time. And sometimes good things come out of it. Like, the most pertinent example I can tell you is, my alma mater, Ole Miss. The powder blue, everybody is obsessed with powder blue. Powder blue took Ole Miss by storm, and it is like part of their brand now. Powder blue was an accident. Mm-hmm. They ordered Navy helmets and painted them the wrong shade and shipped them anyway. And so they had to wear them. And they stuck.
Amazing.
So, good things can come out of it, but, uniform police, they get me fired up because most of the time what they're attached to is not something that is necessarily even good or original at all. It's something that everybody had at the time because they had to.
Can they accidentally ship the black uniforms for UGA home opener next year?
Yeah, I don't know that we even talked about that, John, in the season review, because remember we had like a preseason over under like uniform combos, and it was definitely under. We had in the natty year we had. So here's where we're going though. Georgia won a national championship with 0 alternate uniforms. So Hunter, like forever, the uniform police are forever convinced that's part of why. They'll be like, well, when we won a natty, we didn't wear black.
You can go on the other side of that argument and say, well, now that we won a natty, we can wear whatever we want. It doesn't matter now. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
I like that.
We won a natty.
Yeah, I like that. I like that standpoint. No, I like your brand, your overall just being a part of the brand. I think that's a good one.
I like it.
So Hug Dog he added a PS. So PS, and I don't know this one, so you guys will have to comment on this. Just had Russell Reserve 13 with Dr. Dre Dog. Ooh. It's blow your mind good, he says.
Woo. Okay, Russell Reserve, the 13 year is a barrel proof that Russell Reserves that Wild Turkey is starting to put out kind of every year in the same vein of it's reportedly to be coming out every year in the same vein of like Stag Junior or Elijah Craig barrel proof. But Russell Reserve 13 year, I have heard is absolutely fantastic. I have not had it, but this year was the inaugural year of its release. So Hug Dog drinking on some rare juice there.
Nice, awesome. As to be expected. That's what I expect from Hug Dog. That's pretty awesome. All right, the last question we have is from another frequent question asker, 51-7. Wait, what is that? Yeah, 51-7 GATA. While I'm a fan of the home and home out of conference matchups, considering how much fun we all had in Charlotte, who would you like to see our Dogs play the next time we open the season there? I mean, I will say, as someone who lives just outside of Charlotte, I won't say I live in Charlotte because JP, that'd be like you saying you live in Atlanta and live in Marietta. So I live in Concord, but I'm close enough. It was so awesome for me to have Dog Nation come here. I've lived here 12 years, and it's pretty amazing. Hunter and John, it was the first time we got to meet in person. Y'all coming here with the tailgate. It was so epic. So I'm all about playing here again. I mean, Clemson is a great opponent to play here. I'll say that.
Yep.
But I also would like to have more home and homes with them. Clemson is a traditional rival of ours. We used to play them a ton. So, I keep coming to like the Carolinas, although I'd like to have a home and home with another team there as well. But so I would think UNC would be a good one, although I'd rather go to Chapel Hill. But that's one I can think of.
Yeah, I agree. I think I put out a tweet a while back. I don't know if any of y'all remember it, where I said I would love to see the Dogs play UNC because I'd like to go to Chapel Hill. But I mean, a consolation would definitely be to go to Charlotte and do it because Charlotte was awesome. I'd like to
Athens
see them play.
Chapel Hill.
Well,
you have the age-old argument: who was the first public university? We were funded first. They had class first. All that kind of stuff. Chapel Hill is a nice city, though. It's cool. I've been there.
It's kind of like watching a game in Georgia.
I was going to say,
Stadium.
I like the idea of like teams within the traditional SEC footprint that aren't necessarily SEC teams. So like the North Carolina States, like Florida States, those type teams. I feel like that would create a good atmosphere in Charlotte because it's traveling distance. It's, same region.
Yeah.
I like Florida State. That'd be a good one because it's truly neutral for both schools. That'd be a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, and this is, not like the program is at a different place currently, but for me, I would like to see a Virginia Tech or a West Virginia, like something like that, like a team that Georgia doesn't play very often. I think the West Virginia, like that nostalgia back to that Sugar Bowl game or something. I mean, I think there's some things there that we could tie together.
Avenge that game. Avenge it for
we
DJ Shockwave.
That we could tie together. Yeah. I think the obvious one though would be UNC. But guys, like Georgia has Clemson on the schedule as of now in 2024, 2030, and then I think in like 2032 and 2033. I mean, Clemson is on the schedule in the future, so wouldn't mind seeing that in Charlotte again.
Just to confirm, we're talking about neutral site games, correct?
Yeah. Well, the question was Charlotte. In Charlotte. Who would you want to play in Charlotte?
I don't want to go to Charlotte again. Sorry, Jim. My answer for an off-campus game, neutral site game would be to play USC in Las Vegas.
But then, Bobby would bankrupt Vegas and
Yes. I think having a neutral site game in Las Vegas would be amazing.
That would be dangerous.
I'll be the guy that will take the other side. I hate Las Vegas. I have been many times, and I'm just not. Vegas is not my scene.
It's not my scene either, but I think it would be hilarious because think about how easily accessible that is for so many Georgia fans and how big of an appeal and a big takeover it would be. Like, just imagine the videos and the pictures and the news media about UGA fans taking over Caesar's Palace or taking over the Bellagio or whatever.
That's what I'm scared of because I've been at tailgates in Athens, Georgia, and seeing these people. You put them in Las Vegas when they have their Georgia gear on, man, PR nightmare.
I don't know, man. The Bulldog Bourbon Social Club meetup in Vegas would be pretty epic.
JP, we will be yelling Mizzou, Mizzou, Mizzou. the safe word to stop drinking.
Exactly.
Mizzou.
Look,
we'll be yelling the safe word.
The weekend of Georgia playing LSU a couple of years ago down here in Baton Rouge, I saw a mini taste of what Vegas would look like when they came to Biloxi. There were Georgia fans invading Biloxi in the casinos, and it was
amazing.
It was a show. I can't imagine Vegas.
Carter thanks you. Carter thanks you, Hunter. Carter thanks you.
It was a show.
It was like that. I'm thinking back to the Sugar Bowl for the 02 season. Folks going to the casinos down there, but my buddy Jeff that I went with,
so
he didn't come out well, but he went.
So my thought was obviously play a traditional blue blood that we haven't played before in a neutral site that is easily accessible, that has a mass appeal to it for a number of reasons.
I love it.
So
I think it's great. I think
that's my first thought. My second thought is if we're talking about home and homes that we just have never seen, I'd love to play Michigan in the Big House.
Yeah, we've only played there once ever, and I don't think they've ever come to Athens, right? If I'm getting that right.
Yeah, we've got. I mean, I'm excited because we have the home and home with Ohio State. Again, these games are scheduled so far out, but in 2030, Ohio State comes to Athens, and in 2031, Georgia goes to the Horseshoe. I think we have some games out into the future, and we all know
what odds
Ohio State is likely going to cancel the game.
What odds do you put on that game actually happening?
Well, Ohio State's going to cancel because Texas and Oklahoma is going to be in the SEC, and the SEC is going to be its own league by that point. So
when was the one? Go there next because we had a home and home with them that they did cancel. What are we beyond when that would have happened? I think we're already past when that was supposed to happen, right? The original Ohio State home and home.
I think it was a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Hunter, sorry, I talked over you. What were you saying?
Oh, you're good. I was going to say I was going to go there next. You brought up Texas and Oklahoma, so we get to look forward to Georgia playing Texas and Oklahoma like what, every 15 years, whatever the SEC comes up for a
20
rotation.
years.
Oh my gosh, it's such a mess.
Well, that was going to be my neutral site game was going to be Oklahoma. I would love to see like that game again on a neutral site, but now they're going to be in the league, so we'll see what happens.
And we've got, so speaking of like games that'll be canceled, I mean, because we've got a non-conference game scheduled with them already, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Oklahoma. Assuming they're in the SEC by whenever it's supposed to be, because the whole like it's going to happen right now seems to have faded. But I'm a firm believer, and I've said it before on here before, that contraction is better than expansion. I would much prefer to contract than expand. I don't like it. Get off my lawn.
Get rid of Vandy and Missouri.
Don't expand the playoff either. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, let's boot Mizzou.
Vandy and Missouri.
I would like to play Vanderbilt in Athens. Do we think that game is ever going to happen again?
Seriously. Are we still? I mean, do we agree, right, that like we played like we were pissed off about them canceling the game last year? I mean, like heading in, there was a lot. I heard a lot of talk like last minute, kind of like, oh, like people don't think about that. Like, I don't know. We beat them the way we played. I don't think they were too happy about it.
We scored 35 points in the first quarter, so I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know of many games where you would come in and Georgia is just like guns blazing. And then the best part was even after we scored, 35 in or whatever it was, 35. We came out in the second half and still continued to just run up and down the field.
We ran an end around to Brock Bowers for a touchdown. I mean, come on.
Yeah, when we were up by a gazillion, we were like running in arounds. Yeah, when we were up by a lot of points. So good times.
Well, that's it for the listener questions, but we can continue as long as you guys want. I don't know how much time you have. It's getting late into the evening, but I'm trying to think of how to wrap. I mean, because to me it was just such a special season, and I just think through like I said, the experiences on the field, off the field, friends made. John Powell and I go back to college, but you two guys, I mean, again, like I'm laughing at the fact that like this is the second time you've done the podcast, and the first time you guys were on, I only knew you guys from Twitter. I had literally never talked to you before. And we're at the point now where like, I can't remember. I'm hard pressed on, obviously maybe before that recording. It's like, I talk to you guys literally every day now.
Every day.
Like the friends made throughout the season, just for me adds to the specialness, I guess. It's just I don't know what a year, and for you guys to be there with us along the ride has been it's been special. It's been special. That's the best word I can use.
Well, I think this year the biggest win for me has been becoming friends with y'all and other folks from Dawg Twitter. And all of the My God a Podcast gifts that have continually been circulated and used. I mean, I'm seeing them used like there's like blue checks, like just using My God a Podcast gifts on a regular basis now on Twitter. So I feel like we've all come a long way in many ways.
For sure.
For the first time we talked. So
yeah, absolutely.
So we're all going to be in Atlanta, right? For Oregon?
For sure.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I'm having.
I'll definitely be in the parking lot. Let's put it that way.
I'm having issues with G Day. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to make G Day, but
G
Oregon,
Day,
Atlanta, penciled in for sure.
G Day is typically a
Yes.
family affair for the Powells, so we will usually be there unless we got to be at a soccer.
I think we have a soccer tournament that weekend. I think.
Yeah,
so that's my issue.
There's no way.
But yeah,
no way I'm getting anything done outside of my couple mile between my house and my school with trying to finish this schoolwork until May. It has been the worst semester so far, like the worst. And it's not even halfway done.
Hunter educating us on uniforms and educating America's youth on actual.
I'm sure you've noticed my absence in the thread.
And educating
in
himself.
The text thread.
and getting educated himself in a master's program.
Yeah.
Well,
the trifecta education.
Well, the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club will be hosting a tailgate at G Day, a tailgate in Atlanta, a tailgate in random places on the side of the road for no reason at all. So just as an excuse to get together and drink bourbon. So be on the lookout for all of those. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get together again in person whenever that happens.
I have
for all of us. So.
I'm gonna riff off something that I saw Seth Emerson post, and I'm curious what you guys would think, and I'm curious about what others would say. Like, chime in on Twitter. But so Kirby Smart's won the national championship. What constitutes a success for Kirby Smart and the program over the next 5 years? Do they have to win another national championship? Like, what constitutes success over the next 5 years?
The next 5 years?
Yeah. So if we don't win a national championship, we don't compete for college football playoff. I can't remember what he had. Like, his was like a multiple choice answer. I'm leaving this a little bit more open. Like, what looks like success in the next 5 years for the UGA program?
I mean,
anybody will go.
I would say you gotta stay in the hunt, right?
Okay, so I think that was one of his choices. One of his choices was be in contention for a college football playoff. Another one of his options was win the national championship in the next 5 years. Another one was win a college football playoff game in the next 5 years. And then I think the other option was nothing matters. It's a success no matter what, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I don't know.
It's easy for me. Very easy.
Go.
He's got to at least play for 2 more national championships. Needs to win one of them and has to figure out the quarterback situation. Period. Easy.
So easy.
Who let Dog Stats on the call? Who let Josh?
He is the last part was kind of a joke, but he's already solidified himself, right? He's played for a national championship. He's won multiple college football playoff games. He's won a national championship. Success going forward over the next 5 years is exactly what y'all just said. Like, you just got to stay in the hunt. You can't be an LSU, but Kirby has proven like he's not an LSU. LSU has been in one college football playoff and they won it with that one team. Kirby Smart has been knocking on the door, and Georgia they've been in it. They've been the first team out. They've been, like, one loss could have changed, an entire trajectory of their season. And so I don't think he has anything to prove, but I do think if he is going to, if he's going to maintain the level the bar that he set for himself, that you hear him talk about all the time, you're either a leader or you're not, like all of these things, you definitely in the next 5 years, I don't think you have to, I think you need to be in the hunt every year. I think you probably need to get to 2 national championships over the next 5 years and win one of them to really, kind of solidify that this year wasn't just a generational defense, popping up and making noise.
Wasn't
figure figure out the quarterback situation. bring me Arch Manning.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why we're talking about that. Like, we have a quarterback. His name is Stetson Bennett. He's returning quarterback.
I'm kidding. He's on the Mount Rushmore.
He's on the Mount Rushmore.
Awesome.
So I think that you're right. So Nick Saban hasn't won. Nick Saban hasn't won a back-to-back national championship, right?
He never. Definitely never in the playoff area.
So if he were to do that, he would be usurping Nick Saban.
Right.
Wow.
I don't know that he will do that, but I'm just saying, like, we have something to play for next year.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, playoff era. They did win back-to-back BCS championships, but they didn't win back-to-back playoff national championships. So
does Meg have questions?
I'm not in the chat.
we have a late entry into the thread. This just in.
Breaking news: Meg Jones. How much longer we're going to be recording? Look, we were trying to wrap it up, and then John's like, "Okay, guys, serious question. What does Kirby need to do?"
I mean, this is a forward-thinking podcast. We're talking about success.
I don't disagree. Now I'm like crying. Now I'm crying like I cried when Ringo had the chip 6. Holy crap!
See what you've done, Meg.
So good. Well, I mean, like, I'm not shocked that obviously this was fun. Having you guys on again. Second time guests. Right as of now, I'm pretty sure you guys are. Well, I was gonna say you were the only second time guest. We have had Chase has been a repeat guest, but his were both in the MGAP stories category. So first non-stories repeat guests, friends of the show, founding members of Bulldog Bourbon Social Club. Awesome as I mean, this is when we say the text thread. Hey, this is the episode. This is like texting each other but talking. It's been fun.
The audible manifestation of our ramblings.
Right. Yeah. Apologies to everyone. This is just what we're like. Good times. All right. Let's wrap it up. So Hunter, back to your thing that was kind of ending before John took us off on another path. Hope to see all of you guys like live in person in Atlanta. I think a lot of people will be getting together for G-Day, but I know we won't all be able to make it. But Atlanta against the Ducks as we try to take down Dan Lanning, which is weird. Hope to see you guys there.
Amen. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.